Unicorn. Unicorn.
Hello and welcome to Ask a Unicorn. I'm your host, Ciara O'Mara, and this is brought to you by the Unicorn Union. In this podcast, I'll ask creatives that are mothers about how they balance their creativity with work and family. What fuels it? What tips, hacks and advice they have for fellow parents that might help. Join me in hearing their magic. Hello, listeners. This week, I'm interviewing the fabulous Fran Leach. She is a creative director and currently freelancing. Fran has been in the industry for 18 years. She has worked at agencies such as VCP, DKLW, DHM, BBH, and spent 10 years at Adam and Eve. She has a son who's 8 and a daughter who is 6 as of today. So we're celebrating a birthday as well as we talk today, Fran. Fran, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. It's great to have you. So before we get into any of the serious questions, we're going to find out what your unicorn name is by me asking you what your favorite food, place, and thing to do is. And I'm going to put it into AI for the time efficiency. Not that we are not amazingly creative ourselves, but just to give us a giggle about how bad these AI things can be and see what it comes back with. And then we'll christen you as we head into the rest of our more serious questions.
Into the union. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Gradually, I think we were talking another one that gradually we should change our names to just our unicorn names in the group. So let's find out what yours is. So what is your favorite food, first of all?
Yeah, I think this is a really hard one because I kind of like all food. I think my favourites, I love like the old classics like bread and crisps and pasta and so I was like, oh, maybe it's beige food. But then I'm thinking maybe beige is a really bad answer if we're going to make a unicorn name off the back of
it. White carbs? I don't know, like
just a carb queen.
Okay, who loves carbs? Okay. And then, so what is your favourite place? What's your favourite place?
I would say my bed. Because I love, if I can basically do anything on my bed, then I will do it on my bed. And as you can see, I'm on my bed right now. And I just love getting into bed and like reading, watching films, like writing, anything.
Yeah.
It's always better from my bed.
Oh, I love it. Why not? Exactly. It's like so comforting, isn't it? So, okay, who loves carbs, her bed, and what's your favourite thing to do?
Be in my bed. I don't know. I was trying to think about this. It's a hard one to pin down. I was like, oh, okay. So hobbies. I mean, obviously, as a mum, you don't really get that much time for hobbies anymore. Mm-hmm. I think my like guilty pleasure is I would say I'm like a voracious consumer of real life crime.
Oh,
yeah, like podcasts, TV, books. I mean, it is a massive cliche for kind of women my age, and I am that cliche, basically.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so is it true crime, or can it be like fictional crime or any kind of crime?
True crime. True crime. All
right, true crime. Love that. I know, like who doesn't love a true crime? We all be like, who did it? Who did it? Who done it, as they say.
And Netflix has got, really into it now. So there's so much to choose from, and then you've got like podcasts and I've found myself at points where I like end up listening to like podcasts about real life crime, like where you go deep. When I had a bit more time, actually, I would occasionally go to the Old Bailey and sit in and watch this. This was like pre-kids, but yeah, just because I just find it really fascinating. You can just go and sit in the public gallery and
oh my God, that's really fun. I feel like I want to do that. Because I'd say, would you like hear some, pretty run-of-the-mill stuff, or would it be like, what's the best one that you think you've sat in? I want to know now. I'm fascinated.
Oh no, but I feel awful talking about it like that.
Yeah, it's mad that you can, as a public, just walk in and listen, isn't it? That's cool.
Yeah. There's those like safety measures where you kind of you have to give your phone. And so there's a cafe opposite the Old Bailey where you can go in and they have lockers where you can kind of put your phone in. And what you can do is go online the night before and they publish the like court listings. And you can go online and kind of look up what the different cases are and like kind of Google the names and you can kind of get an idea of maybe what you might like to go and see. Yeah, you meet some quite odd people in the queue, as you can imagine.
I can imagine. That's so cool. I didn't realize that, but that's also like really good for probably writing some stories and getting ideas for like a
Yeah.
novel or a
I know what's
script.
really interesting as well is you see that a lot of the behind the scenes. So there's stuff that say the jury isn't allowed to be privy for like conversations that the jury can't see and they can't report on, but you hear, where they talk about evidence that's not allowed to be presented and things like that, which is quite interesting.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh my God, the next day I have off now and the kids are in school. I feel like, Fran, do you want to go to the OPD? How is it going to interpret that? So, like, I put in and loves watching, reading, and listening to true crime and visiting the Old Bailey, maybe.
Let's see what happens.
Okay, let's see. Okay, sparkly jingle, here we go. And the first one's actually not bad. It's trying to interpret what you mean by its love of carbs, actually, right? So, number one, we've got Fran the forensic focaccia. We got number two, fantastic felony fold. And then that's not bad. And number three is Franscension to the duvet dock. That's a bit random. So, what do we think? Fantastic felony fold.
I quite like it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. All right, awesome.
You are now christened.
Some people might know from your work and stuff, but yeah, I'd love to know a bit more about you. First of all, as a mom, but yeah, what did it take for you to get here today for our chat?
We had quite a busy morning. It's my daughter's birthday. So she's 6 today. So we kind of woke up, did presents. I then remembered that no one had a shower. So we had to do showers. And then it was my son is doing a school trip today as well. And then we realised that we didn't have any ham. So then there was a mad dash to Tesco to get some ham for a sandwich. And then we got them all out the door and to school. So it's always, there was quite a lot to fit in this morning, but we survived.
That's pre-9 a.m. That's a really strong start, isn't it,
Yeah.
as well? Everybody. Yeah, so just a bit more about you as a creative. So are you like an art director, copywriter, hybrid, just for listeners so they kind of know your creative background?
I'm a copywriter by trade, and I think that's probably where my strength is. But I guess, hybrid as well, because I can think visually, and I think as you kind of move up into creative directing, you're doing both. But I think probably my love is copy, and I think a lot of the time if I'm trying to crack a brief or work out an idea, I kind of start by writing and I kind of, write my way into it and write my way through it. But a bit of both.
Yeah, so copywriting is kind of the main thing. And then, how did you get into advertising as a career? I mean, all those 18 years ago, where did it start, Fran?
Yeah, well, I think when I was at school, that I went to quite a traditional school, and you kind of came to like go to uni. It's like expected you go to uni. What are you going to do? And I was like, well, I want to do art and English. And they were like, well, that doesn't really exist. You can't do that. You can do like an art foundation and then do an English degree, but you can't do a joint honours art and English. And so in the end, I chose English and did that. But really, I guess looking back on it, it's like art and English is advertising, really. It's the two disciplines that come together. So I did my English degree, and then I thought I wanted to go into kind of international politics and development and charity work, that kind of thing. So I worked for the Red Cross for a couple of years, but it wasn't what I thought it would be. I think I envisioned myself, like jetting off to all these countries and, dropping aid and stuff like that. And it just wasn't like that. It was very kind of admin based, quite strategy led. So I abandoned that idea. And then I thought advertising looked quite fun. So I went in as an account man. I started on the account side on Asda back in the day when we had Sharon doing the pocket tap. So I did that. But when I was doing it, I was like, creative looks a lot more fun. I didn't like the account management side of things, where I kind of felt like I was stuck in the middle, where I had kind of clients asking me for things, creatives asking me for things, and I couldn't problem solve that. I was just kind of the middleman, between the two. And I think also I made my first ad. It was like a car insurance ad. And I loved the process, and I got to go on the shoot. And then when we finished, I was like, oh, that was really fun, but that's not mine. Like the ad that came out, it wasn't my ad. And I really wanted it to be, really. And so I decided that I wanted to go into creative. So at the time, though, they had these things called the D&Ad workshops, which I don't think exist anymore, which is a real shame, because I think they're a great way of getting kind of people who haven't come through the traditional ad school route into advertising. And it was like a 6 weeks course, and they sent out a brief and people sent in work. And then the best people, they put the on the course, and then every week you got a new brief, and you went into an agency, stuck all your work on the wall, and then they went around and kind of created all the work. And I ended up doing a couple of them, and basically it got me a portfolio together. I think I kind of knew enough from being in advertising to kind of understand how an ad worked and how to do it. And then everything else I kind of learned along the way. So, I mean, they were like a real crash course, because obviously you got your work critted, but you saw everyone else's work get critted as well. So, and they were with some really great, CDs at the time. And then I had this book, and there was a period of time where I was still doing my account management job, but then I was sneaking off and doing crits on the side. So then when I got myself a placement, I then quit and just kind of pursued that full time. And the first placement I did actually on my own, and then I found my partner, Chris, who's been my kind of long-term partner. Yeah, and then we kind of just then started doing the rounds, and it was good.
God, that's an amazing journey, isn't it? Now all the account if there's any account people listening, they'll be like, I can change to the other side. Yeah.
I mean, I am a believer that it's a way of thinking, but I think people can. I think some of the mystique that is surrounding creative is maybe kind of created by creatives to kind of mean they're not questioned over their work, and it's, I think, I would say to anyone, it's definitely the best department to be in. So if you find that your being in account management isn't scratching the itch, then definitely it's worth the effort to move.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, same probably anyone in any of the departments, isn't it? But it's funny you said about the D&AD. I mean, that's amazing that you got to do that thing. That really helped you, get the portfolio together. I know there's things like D&AD Shift, but then hopefully there's something like that still around, because I noticed from the UK, I notice everybody comes out of certain courses, and it is lovely to see people come at in like from different angles, because I think the industry needs so many different perspectives, doesn't it?
Financially as well. I mean, like I was already in my mid-20s, I lived with friends in London, and I was like, if I then tried to, Watford was running at the time, that would have been probably my first port of call to try and get on that course. But I was like, I can't afford to do that, and I don't want to have to move home, and I have my life, and I've kind of become a grown up, and I don't want to regress.
Yeah.
So I think it's opening up again. A lot of the new schemes that are out there now, like, the BBH Barn and things like that, and they actually pay people who do the course. So it's less, prohibitive financially. But I think there was a period of time, like probably like 10 years ago, where it was very much like all of D&AD, New Blood, you had to be on a course to get onto New Blood and do that. And it was very much, the whole industry was structured around the flow from, the universities and the courses, it's straight in. And, different voices, different ways in is like crucial.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's just lovely to kind of hear the different journey in. So you were getting the book together, which, alongside a full-time job, which is pretty like tough going. But then, I suppose you had the insight into, how the agency works and client feedback, which you obviously were in the middle of. I suppose from that, like, probably very hard to pick out one thing. But if there was one or two things that you think, out of all the work you've done since you changed from the account side to the creative side, that you think is really sums up you as a creative as well, Fran, that you're like, oh, actually, that's really stuff I love making.
Marmite Baby Scan was a really great project. Like, what I loved about that was it was a kind of different shaped work. So the idea behind it, which was how, your babies in the womb can taste what their mum their mums have eaten through the amniotic fluid. And so that was the kind of idea, and we kind of pushed it into social, and there was some print that ran and some out of home, but the kind of main bulk of the idea was that we did it for real, and we got these women and gave them Marmite on toast and then scanned them to see kind of what happened. And but I love different shape work like that. Don't get me wrong, I love a good poster, a good simple poster, but that kind of work is really exciting to create, because the shape is totally different each time, and it was done in this real whirlwind where it was like, we've literally got 3 weeks to pull this all together. So it was the most intense 3 weeks probably of my whole career. But we got to go to these scan centres and kind of do it for real, and so that was really, really fun and exciting. But I think there are other pieces of work that I'm also proud of. I think like something like Hertz, I still really like that ad. Like the direction in it is really great. And I think the premise of that was that it was all about how you can fit more into a Hertz van. So we had quite a lot of fun creating this ad where a boy, it goes off to uni, and he basically, as you see him leave, and then the parents go back in the house, and then they realise that he's basically just like taken everything from the house. It's the sort of work that I love in that it has that insight, and it was based on a real insight that me and my partner had of when we went to uni, and we kind of like took a load of stuff from home that we probably shouldn't have taken. And I think that's where all the best work comes from, because it has that insight. And that was really fun to make, to think of like, what's the craziest stuff that he can take. And I think also because it's got an insight that comes from me, it feels very much mine. It's my kind of lived experience. I guess in the same way Marmite Baby Scan was as well. We created that when both me and my partner, like creative partner, had children within like 2 weeks of each other, I think. And we'd I'd come back to work, and it was one of the first projects that we did after I came back from maternity leave. That experience of having your child and being pregnant and having, these scans was, part of our experience and what we've been going through at the time.
Amazing. I mean, 2 great projects. Just for our listeners, I'll put a link to Fran's amazing portfolio in the description. They're both and humour to them as well is nice, even though it's insightful how you turn it into something humorous. I'm intrigued to know, was there any moms that like hated Marmite and the babies loved it?
Yeah, no, there was a kind of mix of everything. There was, some babies liked it, some didn't. Whether they were reacting to the Marmite is, unproven. But there was definitely some reactions.
It's one that kind of definitely is a polarizing conversation, is it, Marmite, in every household. So lovely. And then the Hertz one is like, ransacking your entire parents' house. I love us made it into a script of when you head off to uni.
It's funny about like making, what you say about making comedy, because I feel like when I was with Chris, a lot of it was us just having fun at work and kind of trying to make each other laugh. And I think that's where a lot of our best work came from. And a lot of the time as well, we'd kind of create decks and we'd throw in like the kind of the outsider kind of idea, sometimes just for like a cheap gag kind of at the end. And sometimes that stuff, would get bought and they'd be like, yeah, great. That I believe like you do your best work when you're kind of relaxed and you're having fun. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's so lovely that you had like babies like 2 weeks apart and you're like straight into, let's go back and scan loads of babies. So I should ask you, Fran, lover or hater of Marmite? Someone who's made Marmite, do you love or hate it?
I quite like it. And I tell you what, with peanut butter is really good as well. That's like a kind of salty, meaty, sweet combo, which is, it's good.
I know it's contentious. Literally, my husband loves it, and I'm not a fan. So it's I need to try it out with my kids now and see out of your idea. That's probably really, really great work, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about work towards the end of the podcast as well. But let's chat a little bit about you as a mom. So I'd love to know like a little bit about your family structure. Yeah, what's your kind of setup as your family?
So I've got 2 kids, 8 and 6. And my husband, he works from home, which does make things a bit easier, in terms of that both of us having to do like the mad dash home is, we don't have it. He didn't used to work from home and it was a lot more stressful. But I think him working from home has been brilliant. So he does that. And then, so my son has autism, so he can't be in after school club. He kind of finds that quite difficult. So he was, and they used to go to after school club, but we now have a kind of childminder who comes in and helps. So even though my husband's at home, but we kind of made the decision where it's like he is still working and it's quite difficult for him to do tea and things like that. And, you know, it's stressful having to try and juggle those two things. So we kind of made a decision like, right, okay, you know, we'll have someone who picks them up from school, brings them home, looks after them, gives them dinner, even though my husband's kind of upstairs working, which works really well for us. What I really like is it gives a bit more of the flexibility. Whereas when they were in after school club, there was that like, oh, I've got to get home, you know, because it shuts on the dot 6, you know, whereas having someone here, there is a bit more flex on getting home.
Yeah, that's really helpful in that regards. So was he, when he wasn't working from home, that would have been a lot harder to juggle, I imagine, trying to, who's picking up, who's dropping off. And then is that only recently that you kind of like have somebody come in, or has that been kind of going on for a while?
We've had it for about 8 months, something like that. So yeah, no, it's definitely better for us. We were kind of forced into it, but then actually once we'd done it, we were like, this is so much better than, you know, the setup before. It's better for my son, it's better for us. And really actually with the kind of cost of it, because I had 2 kids who were doing after school club, the cost isn't that much more. I guess it's all economies of scale, isn't it? You know, so it works really well for us.
I think that's the thing people think when they go to school, it's like all free, and there's actually a lot of things that rack up, isn't there? Yeah, all the after school clubs and all that.
I mean, my daughter does do some after school clubs, but it's like Hunger Games kind of vibes. Like they only have a certain number of places and you literally have to log on at like 6 p.m. on the Friday that they release them to get the spots. And yeah, they go really quickly. So you can't really, and then they still only finish at like 4:30.
And then, so what was the process of trying to find the person who helps you now? Was it hard to find someone to do the wraparound care, or?
But we kind of got lucky because she looks after our cats when we go away. She's our cat sitter.
Oh my God, amazing. This woman is like...
So she, as in she like comes in and feeds our cats. So we were like, okay, well, our cats are doing okay, so maybe she can look after our kids as well. But it was kind of quite fortuitous because she's doing an MA and she kind of had this time, you know, she does her kind of studies in the morning and then had the free time, and it just kind of came out of a conversation with her that we were looking. But she's actually leaving us at the end of the summer, so I'm going to have to go through the trauma of finding someone new. So I'll probably be able to tell you more after I've done that process. Yeah, I'm slightly dreading it. I'm hoping it's going to be okay. I think you talking to other mums, like, who do you use? And it's all a bit of a small network world that you kind of just have to tap into and try and figure out.
Yeah, completely, isn't it? That's when you get the intel from the other moms eventually, when you kind of get into the circuit. Don't think about the next one until you have to, isn't it?
I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I can't think about it.
Yeah. Well, it's true though, because it does generally take a village to raise kids, doesn't it? And I think, even no matter where you are raising kids, like you start getting to know people in your kind of community, you know, you're finding her and then realizing that she has the capacity and the want to mind kids and around her MA. That's great. Yeah, you kind of touched on it briefly there, Fran. You mentioned that your son has had a diagnosis for autism. So how has that kind of affected the structure of your support structure and your care needs with the kids? And how did that potentially, if you're comfortable sharing, how did that come about? And what have you learned from it all?
So we got a diagnosis about 18 months ago. We were very lucky, and our school was quite heavily involved, and it was something that I'd kind of seen, you know, at home, but also our school kind of raised it with us and kind of happened at the same time. And so we got a diagnosis. And I think for anyone who kind of has questions and is, you know, should I get diagnosis? Should I not? I think for us, the diagnosis really kind of opened up a lot for us. I think in terms of us understanding what our son needed. And I think once we knew what he needed, we could kind of just help him so much more and make him a lot happier. And I think also working with the school, our school has been a really good support. I know some schools aren't as good. We've been very lucky, and our school is a good at kind of SEN. And so he has quite a lot of help at school, you know, in terms of OT provision and speech and language and TAs who are amazing and kind of help him along the way, you know, help him day to day at school. But I think the diagnosis kind of opened up all those things for us to get the help. There's the HCPs that you can look at, which are educational healthcare plans, and they kind of help. I think one of the misunderstandings about communication is I think a lot of people think that people with autism have these amazing kind of language skills or can do, amazing maths equations in their head, and it's a kind of like Rain Man kind of situation. Whereas actually the reality of a lot of autism is it isn't like that. And it comes with kind of things like dyslexia, learning disabilities. And I think when that's the case, extra help at school is really important, because I think otherwise, children can kind of slip between the gaps, really. But we've worked with the school quite hard to kind of put stuff in place to help manage my son's anxiety, I think, around school. It got quite difficult at one stage, but we managed that through. He has like a soft start where he goes to a quiet room when he first gets to school and things like that. And through the day, he has like movement breaks, which kind of help with like anxiety and things like that. So I think that's been really important. The government also run a really great scheme called Early Bird, which is for parents, and you can go on that. I think it's like 7 or 8 weeks, and you do it with other parents of autistic children. And it's like one morning, it's like 6 mornings, 7 mornings, and they talk you through everything and also what your child is entitled to. There's other things like the living disability allowance and things which can help kind of access funding. And so I think our support structure is maybe bigger. I think our school has quite a big job to play in everything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously now you obviously talked about that's, getting the different wraparound care because of after school club not being an option. And suppose, this is the gift of motherhood. Our kids teach us so much, right? What have you learned the most from it, do you think?
I think it's, as a mum, I kind of feel a bit more like I worry less about, comparing with other mums and, because it's not really, your situation isn't so comparable. And I think it's kind of freed me up from those kind of comparisons. When he first got his diagnosis, I think it was really hard, more from the point of view where you don't really know what the future holds. And I was kind of like, is he going to have a really difficult time? How is his life going to kind of play out? And I don't really know what that looks like at the moment. And that was quite an anxious time. But then as you kind of get used to it and then you get on with life, that kind of passed. And it's a wonderful thing. And I kind of enjoy having this son who is a quirky little boy who kind of sees the world differently, and that's the pleasure, to be around, and who has these like special interests which brings him so much joy, and to have those kind of passions in your life is a really amazing thing. And I think once you move past the initial shock of that diagnosis, then you actually start to see all the really positive things about, having autism in your life and just understanding people more. I think probably the reality is maybe there's probably quite a lot of autism in my family. And I think it's helped me maybe understand family members a bit better. And the whole process has been quite a journey of discovery, I think, for my son, but for like the whole family, really.
Amazing. Yeah. So lovely, isn't it, to hear? Yeah. No matter what your kids bring you, they teach you so much. Even that the whole experience you've been through just teaches you even more about the entire family unit. Thank you as well for being so honest and sharing that information, because I'm sure there'll be other moms listening that are potentially going through it or have been through it and different stages of it, of finding that out. And, I'm sure they're listening to you, and all the kind of like other resources you said as well are really, really helpful. Yeah. What's kind of the cost of running a week or a month basically with the 2 kids and the current setup?
So we pay, weekly, our after school care, and it's like £20 an hour. No, sorry, £18 an hour. So it's like 180 a week. And that's from like 3:15 to 6:15. So when I looked at it compared to kind of kids in after school club for 2 hours, for 2 kids in after school club, it wasn't that much different.
Yeah. You multiply it by 2 then.
Yeah.
So it's better to have somebody come in, which is probably maybe, it depends on what they're going to charge you, whether it's like 15 to 20 pounds an hour when you divide it by the 2.
I think getting the full-time nanny is the hard one, because I'd like chat to some people and they're like, well, if it's their full-time job, then they're going to need enough hours to like sustain a life, to live and stuff. And, then you're getting into like very different costs. But if you can find someone where they're kind of supplementing something else, another
Yeah.
another job or study, then that's, the kind of sweet spot.
There is a few little kind of just apps and things, isn't there? Like Coro Kids is one. I'm not obviously not saying endorsing them, but I've just them. Bubble. There's these people that are kind of good with kids, or like, DBS and all that. They put their profile up there for hours around, they study and all that kind of thing. That helps in like trying to get the wraparound care. So yeah, I suppose you kind of talked about your husband obviously has the flexibility, which is great that he, is at home. And then obviously currently you're freelancing. So yeah, how do you manage the flexibility?
I think with him being at home, it means that he can mostly kind of do drop-offs. I try and do drop-offs, and so I do a bit of it. But I think what's great about my husband working from home is there's always kind of someone there. He does occasionally, a couple of times a year, have to go away with work, and that's when I feel my stress levels rise quite drastically. And that's when it's a bit more of a juggle. That is when I feel quite crunched when that happens,
And in like previous agencies where you were at, did you have flexibility at all around childcare, like drop-offs and collection? Was there any?
I mean, I was quite lucky at Adam and Eve because when I had my children, I'd been there for quite a long time, and it might be more of a psychological thing where you feel able to ask for these things or demand them. What I've always done is going into a job, made it really clear from the beginning, like during that interview process, kind of said, look, I have 2 children, I do need to do some drop-offs and pickups, and then it's laid out there really clearly. I think a lot of the problem arises is when stuff just goes unsaid, and I think just being really clear about it. And also like sticking to the time, like saying like, don't put meetings in past, 4:45. And I would block out my diary, and that would be the time. And I was always like, if I do have flexibility. So if you want a meeting to go past that, just come and speak to me, and then I can arrange that and make sure that, I have cover and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's like when you're worried about saying it and then you don't say it, and then people just don't know what the boundaries are. And so I think it's like being really clear about those boundaries, even though it feels really awkward at the time. That's kind of what makes it work.
Yeah, communicating your needs. As much as we wish, no one can read our minds, can they? So, and not being nervous to say it, like we're all human. I think it's a good sign of an agency too, if you set boundaries or wherever you're working and they stick to those boundaries, like that's a good sign of culture and a place you want to work hard as well. And I do think people respect you more when you have boundaries, because if you just kind of are like, yeah, whatever, I think your time becomes more precious when they know there's like a limit on it. But yeah, that was good that you were at Adam and Eve and been there a while, because I was going to ask, where you were at when you had your son. And did you think, even though you were there a while, did you think it was going to alter your career anyway? And if so, in what way? And or not at all?
Do you know what? I think it was something I knew I always wanted to do. So I just didn't really think about it too much. I just kind of did it. And with a kind of, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. I know that it's something that I want to do. So let's just kind of do it. and not worry about it too much, because I guess it's that kind of worrying about something you can't change, because it's like I know that I want to have a child, and I know that I also love advertising, and I want to stay in advertising. So I think I was like, let's not worry about it. Let's just make it work.
Yeah, it'll sort itself out. And yeah, so how did you find being off maternity leave with your son and with your daughter?
Well, I had 2 quite different maternity leaves, because my first was kind of quite, bog standard mat leave. But then my daughter, so she was born in May of COVID lockdown in like the April. She was born in that moment where you couldn't leave the house, or what was it? You could go for like 1 walk a day and stuff like that. So that experience was quite different, because I think actually the 2 weeks before I went on mat leave, everyone was working from home anyway. So then my kind of leave from work, it was quite odd, because there was no like, oh yeah, bye everyone. It was just to kind of like shut my laptop and then like, okay. I mean, what was great, I was really lucky in that I took a year for each of them. I remember like walking out the office with my son, like when I was pregnant with him, when I was going on mat leave. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've just got this like kind of year ahead of me of God knows what life has in store for me. But it was quite a like, freeing feeling, really. I mean, I was so excited about having a baby, and yeah, it was a really exciting time, really.
And like, so thinking of like potentially you could hang out in the Old Bailey every day on maternity leave.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the different timing of people having babies during COVID in some way. You see, you kind of had that first maternity leave of you can do anything, and then it kind of changed then obviously for the second one.
In the first time I did NCT, and so I had, like some NTC friends and we used to do stuff together. And the second time I didn't have any of that. And a lot of my mates had all had their second children and were kind of out of that stage. So I was slightly worried I was going to be a bit lonely. But in my first mat leave, I was very much like, right, I need to be doing these like baby classes and I need to be doing this and I wasn't as relaxed as maybe I wanted to be. You're constantly Googling nap times and how much milk they should be drinking and blah, blah, blah. And so I'd said to myself, right, I'm going to have a more relaxed mat leave and I'm going to do some stuff that I want to do rather than kind of feeling quite stressed the whole time of, am I doing this right? And I should be doing all this stuff and maybe doing stuff that I didn't actually really enjoy doing that much, that was just more stressful than anything else. But then it was COVID. So I had all these big plans to just spend loads of time doing like baby cinema and stuff like that, but it all went out the window. So it was, the loneliness part was kind of great, really, COVID, in the way that my husband was at home all the time. Everyone was at home. I wasn't really missing out on anything. And that first couple of months, I think my family didn't meet my daughter until she was like 3 or 4 months because they weren't allowed to, and that was difficult. But the upside of it was that we kind of had our little unit and we just were at home together and I didn't have to entertain anyone. I could just kind of sleep and relax and all those outside pressures, were off.
Yeah, that actually is so nice because there's like a lot of that at the start, isn't there? When you're like trying to breastfeed or figure out, and then some people are calling, you're like, I really don't need to making you a cup of tea right now.
Yeah.
You make your own. Yeah. And that's the thing. There's like pros and cons, I suppose. Yeah, to the COVID thing and having that like unit, like you're saying, that precious time together. So that's kind of lovely to hear. Then there's like some other wild things about it, isn't there? And then the difference, the plans, and there's things like baby raves that I don't know, does anyone look forward to on their maternity leave of going to these baby classes?
Yeah, it's kind of like there's all this stuff that you feel like you should be doing, but then it's like actually just trying to get everyone, trying to get the baby out and then you've got nap time and then you've not slept, they're not sleeping, and it's all just actually quite stressful. I think I felt that I shouldn't be sitting in, but actually it's fine. So I embraced that on my second.
I think it is a lot on first-time moms, isn't it? So the second maternity, each one apparently gets better. Did you have any kind of fears or excitement about going back to work, or was there? Again, it'd be different after each one.
When I went back to work with my daughter, we were still in lockdown. I think we'd come out of lockdown, then we gone back in lockdown. So that was like a really great transition back to work because I was working from home. At the time, I was doing a lot of work on Waitrose and we were doing quite a lot of shoots, but that was great because it kind of got me out of the office, got me out of the house. Like at the time, on set was like the safest place to be because everyone was like COVID swab and things like that. So I really enjoyed that kind of return to work because it was an ease in because we were still all in lockdown. I think my sons, I think a lot more anxious. My son was a bad sleeper and he was still waking up at night when I went back to work. I did feel quite anxious about what was going to be needed from me. My big fear was like, oh my God, they're going to put me on a pitch and it's going to be like, I'm going to have to stay up all night and then my son's going to be awake. And it never happened. So it was fine. And I think the difference also with my daughter, when I came back to work, they had a kind of policy where you had a kind of coffee with the senior females in the agency. So I had kind of chat with Miranda Hipwell, who is now CEO, but at the time was the MD. And we had a coffee over Zoom. And she said to me, oh, look, like just gradually get into it. You don't have to prove anything. She was like, no one is expecting you to go out and win like a Cannes Lion. Just slowly ease yourself in. And I think that was amazing, that chat. And I'm still today really thankful for it. I think sometimes with the return to work, there's not communication. And in the same way, what is it expected of you? And I think sometimes all that kind of stuff that is unsaid is really difficult. I feel like if we can have more open conversations like that in the workplace, place. I think it would really help women coming back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the communication thing again, isn't it? You were saying about telling people what you need, like even for your instruction, what you need with the drop-off pickups. It's like, just being able someone to like listen and to talk to you through about the transition back and hearing what you're going through and then saying to you it's all right versus thinking, oh God, I'm gonna have to go straight back into pitch mode. Can you imagine? That'd be absolutely cruel. Here, you're on a pitch and your baby doesn't sleep. Let's see how you go. That's like resilience, like genie. But yeah, the anxiety and the kind of fears going back, you just don't know, isn't it? Like you're saying, you take a year off and then you go back and you're like, what are they going to make me do?
Yeah. It's all about communication. I feel that that's somewhere that agencies could improve on, is the kind of having those conversations. I mean, it's really weird. You especially with your first, and you go off on maternity leave and you come back and you're like this totally different person. And there's this weird kind of clash really where you're different, everything else is the same, and it feels quite surreal. And I think people forget that it's not the same for you, and it is for them but it's not for you.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? To think, you go back in and like it's the same agency and same processes and hopefully not the same brief that's on the table that you walked out on a year ago. But like,
I have to say I did have that.
oh my God, that's go. That just shows you that sometimes you think lots will have changed, but nothing changes. But yeah, it does really change you. It shifts all your priorities and all the order of your psyche, basically, isn't it? I suppose, yeah, on that actually, do you think since you became a mother, it's affected your confidence or your sparkle, as I would say, as a unicorn?
It's funny, I think at the time I didn't feel that it had, but I think when I look back on it, those first couple of years, I think it actually had. Slightly less confident, I think, but at the time I didn't feel that it had. But more kind of a bit more anxious about, you can't say yes to everything like you could in the old days, and I think so having the confidence to be like, I want to work on this brief and I want to do this pitch. Like, I think that was maybe where I suffered from it, and I've kind of come out of that now.
Yeah, again, that's kind of the transition, isn't it? A little bit, and giving yourself the time to realize, like, I can't be the old version of myself. But when you walk into the place that's still the same, it's hard. Then that's a kind of like that weird clash, like you mentioned. And then did you think like your creativity changed anyway? So when you went back to work,
I think, but probably not my creativity. I think becoming a mum maybe changed how I interacted with other people a bit more. I think, especially like after having my daughter and I moved kind of more into like a CD role, I think it made me a bit more nurturing of younger teams and kind of helping them kind of crack briefs and push the work and make it better. And I think that sort of side to me has developed since having kids. Whereas I think maybe pre-kids, I was a bit more about me or me and my partner, it was maybe a lot more selfish and it was about the work that I wanted to do. And I'm probably more empathetic as well, a lot more what they've got going on in their lives and, the pressures that they're under. And yeah, I guess it's like softened me slightly.
And again, they're all really good traits to being really good leaders, right? That's the thing, is like the emotional intelligence or like nurturing thing, like you say, to the CG thing. It's a really good thing. And like, yeah, I suppose speaking about the work you've made since you became mom, obviously Marmite was one of the ones, which is great. Is there anything after?
Yeah, Marmite was after becoming a mum. And then some of the more recent stuff I've done, more kind of CD'd through. When I was at VCCP, we did a really nice campaign called The Poison Swan. It was a team called Arthur and Ludo, and they came up with the idea of changing the name of the pub, the White Swan in Twickenham, but that was the one we used to talk about how kind of cigarette butts dropped end up in rivers and kind of poison wildlife. So we changed the name of the White Swan to the Poison Swan, and it was really nice, like craft campaign as well, where we got a pub sign painted to kind of repaint the sign, and it was this kind of sick looking swan surrounded by cigarette butts, and we got to make beer mats with the new sign. Again, it's that kind of different shape work, I think, that I find really interesting, where it kind of started as a poster, but then it's like, let's do it for real. That was really good fun.
And the weird shaped stuff, though, it's lovely, isn't it? Because people will talk about it more. On that, is there anything in the whole process of thinking creatively and from the concept to getting that brief all the way to creating it and going live, what's the part of it that you love the most? Like, if you're like, this is the part I get a real kick out of.
I think it's coming up with the idea. It's that moment where you're like, yes, this is it. And this could be really great. Because I think it's the moment where like full of possibility, you've got the idea and for me, that idea that kind of cracks it, that's really exciting moment. And then the work that comes off that could, you're still in this kind of moment of possibility where it could go anywhere, it could be as big as you want it to be. And, before the realities of budget and things like that get involved.
Nice. So it's before the budget. Don't tell me the budget. I don't want to know. Yeah, that kind of part you feel like you've got the golden nugget, basically. Yeah, nice. Is there things that you find use as little hacks or things to help you creatively? Because obviously we're all inherently very time poor as parents, but we also need to still crack every brief and create direct all these teams. Is there little things that you found, oh, actually, I've started doing this or I've been doing that and that's really helped, that you think would help other moms listening?
I always try and keep on top of like the work coming out. So, like stuff like Dave Reviews is really great for that. And keeping up with the campaign and just seeing all this stuff that's coming out. Because I feel like knowing other work can really help shape your work. And also just so you have that reference. So like, when I talk to teams and I'm like, remember this ad and you could do it a bit like this, or when, and you have a frame of reference that you can work off. And I think that's like having a kind of encyclopedic knowledge of advertising past, I think is really, really helpful. And also, so what's been done before and that it's different and it's fresh. And AI, I've started working with that. Do you know what? I find it really helpful because I didn't study advertising at uni and because I've always had an art director to work with. My Photoshop skills aren't that amazing, but AI is brilliant now because rather than like me having to kind of work out how to like remove a background on Photoshop or whatever, you just put it in Photoshop and say like, take out the background, move it a bit this way or skew it this way or make it look 3D and it's, it's so quick. And I found it quite freeing because I can kind of express my ideas.
Yeah, I mean, both those are really helpful. But like on the AI thing for a writer, predominantly, that it is really freeing. Is like, you don't have to negotiate with your art director to mock that thing that you're thinking of. You can just do it yourself. Or I think even like, just for art directors, the hours you would have spent like cloning things, removing backgrounds. It's just you think back, what a waste of time. Like when you could actually be spending it cracking the brief and thinking better ideas. So we are grateful to AI for some of that stuff while we continue using all our fantastic actual brains. It can do all that heavy lifting and things. And then, the references is a good one. Just like if people don't know, like David Reviews, you can get like subscriptions to it. Some agencies will have one already and the same for campaign. And I'm pretty sure like you can search by brands and stuff like that on David Reviews. And it is really important, isn't it? I think just to know the work that's around. So yeah, two really good things to keep in mind, guys, when you're thinking of stuff. So all this work and all these kids and everything that's going on, there's a lot to juggle, Fran, especially now, even like in the freelancing world and like moving to different agencies. And so how do you kind of look after you in the midst of all of this?
I think it's really, what's really important is to just not put too much pressure on yourself. I know like I had a conversation with my husband recently because my son does cubs and he loves cubs. And my daughter had expressed an interest in doing kind of like, I think it's rainbows, which is their younger one. And my son's cubs is like 7 to 8, which is fine. It's like in the evening we can kind of do all that kind of ferrying back and forth. But then my daughter's one was a lot earlier and I kind of actually just said, look, she's going to have to wait until she's a tiny bit older and the session is later because it's too stressful, like having club that is going to crunch my time. And I'm going to find there's times when I have to like race home and I was just like, I can't have that stress at the moment. And it's probably a bit selfish, but I think it's okay. If you say yes to everything, you will find yourself drowning. And I think being a bit selfish and saying, no, taking that on is going to be too much, so I'm not going to do it. A relaxed mum is better to be around than a really stressed out mum, even if you are doing rainbows.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the boundaries, isn't it? Right? Like they won't remember whether they did rainbows or they did cubs. But for you though, do you do just for you creatively, besides maybe it is going to the Old Bailey or those things that like you were saying that was kind of pre-kids? Like, what do you do for yourself?
Well, actually, it was on maternity leave with my daughter. I actually got quite into kind of like creative writing because I kind of found that I had all these stories, but I didn't quite know how to kind of get them out. And then I read a book all about kind of structuring and how you structure a screenplay. And a lot of, I didn't realize this, but a lot of screenplays kind of follow rules of structure. And I found like once I had that, I could then tell these stories. So in lockdown, I kind of wrote a couple of like screenplays and like a radio play and like slightly different shape work, but over the same principle. And I've kind of I've kept that up. So that's been, I find that's quite a nice creative outlet because you can do whatever you want and you are the client and you can express in any way that you want. So yeah, I've kind of kept that up, which is really nice.
And are they crime related? Does someone like, are they true crime related or are they a mix of things? Like
some of them are, yeah. I found that they're all kind of like funny-ish. You know, I always worry about like branding them comedy because they're maybe not like laugh out loud comedy, but they're all kind of, because I find that if I do something that kind of makes me chuckle, it's always a good use of time. I don't need to be making other people laugh, but at least I'm making myself laugh.
Exactly. Yeah, are you thinking of making them into anything?
In a weird way, the first one that I did, I just kind of wanted to do it. So I could say that I could do it, like almost like a goal, you know. And so I did that. And then I kind of had an idea for a TV series and I wrote a pilot. And I think at one point in maternity leave, I did speak to an agent about it, but it was kind of vampire related, my pilot. And they were like, yeah, no, there's too many shows about vampires. We wouldn't be able to sell that.
And I was like, why? It's just like vampires are too popular. Like, what?
Like vampires have been done. So and that kind of made me realise that actually if you're going to do it commercially, it's not just about your idea and your writing, it's about the market and what the market wants and kind of all this sort of stuff. Really at the moment it's just more of a fun.
Yeah,
really.
Great. Awesome. If you're enjoying it and, you know, maybe if vampires are okay to shoot, maybe in 10 years time they're like, we need a vampire show. You're like, I have one.
That comes back around.
Yeah. But like Sinners, like that movie, like I feel like vampires are always, you know, they're always in demand.
They're always on trend.
But that's lovely to hear that you're doing that stuff and it's for yourself. And it's just like the practice of writing and things. Probably a big question, isn't it? Because it's very hard to like know what the exact thing. But is there anything you kind of wish now? You kind of look back, you're saying like you look back and go, oh yeah, actually that did affect me then or whatever. Is there one thing you wish you'd known before becoming a mother? As a creative more so that you're like, I wish I'd known that.
Do you know what? I think it's almost how great it is to work with other mums. For me, like if I've got a team and they're all mums, I'm like, yes, I have hit goal because that idea of mums get stuff done, you know, we've got a certain amount of time and we're going to get it done and there's no procrastination. You just kind of get on with stuff. And that is definitely true. But I think the other thing that I found is working, especially like producer mums, working with producer mums is like the best thing on earth because you're on the same page and they don't book in a sound session that runs till like 8 p.m. at night, you know, and I think that for me is like when I can work with other mums, I know that I'm onto a good thing.
I was just like nodding away, producer moms, because all moms are producers basically in the day. But like it is true. And there's like a lovely sense of knowing that you all have a certain time, like even like us trying to say it's like there's a certain time like school. We know it's like school pickup. Yeah, you inherently become more efficient. And then if you know everyone's on the same page, shout out to all the producer moms because they are amazing. Yeah, with all that, would you still pick advertising? Would you want to go run back and be an account person, Fran? Are you like the creative department always as a career?
Yes, definitely. I'd do it all again if I had the chance. I always feel quite smug when I talk to my friends because they were always like, oh, you found a career that you really love. And I can see the jealousy in them. You know, I think it's a great industry to be in and to kind of make the work and just to always be making things and the problem solving element I love. I feel really lucky that I kind of found something that I love doing and I you know, not to have that, you know, the Sunday night fear before you go into work, not to have that is a real blessing, I think.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, it's true. It's like, it's a nice feeling. And you just realise, I think when you meet other moms, you don't realise that not everybody works in careers that they actually enjoy. They see it as more a job. I suppose that's different by the creative industries, isn't it? But speaking of like the industry in general though, do you think there's anything the industry could get better at, though, for creative mothers to make sure that we stay around?
You know, you talk about the 13% of female CDs. So I think there are more women coming into creative departments, but there's still this kind of drop off. The industry does need to try and support those women more. And I think it's an emotional support and helping women kind of have the confidence to kind of move upwards, but also logistical thing. You know, the flexibility is key. And if women don't have the flexibility in the agencies, they go and seek it somewhere else. And I think that's a real shame. Like, I just would love to see more, you know, senior female creatives in the industry, more CDs. And I find it quite crazy in a way. In the work, we kind of demand difference, and it's always like, is it different, is it fresh, you know, and we award something that is different. That is our goal as creatives, to create different work, not to have it run of the mill, all the same. But when it comes to the people, we don't kind of demand the same thing. You know, it's not valued in the same way as it is in the work. Yeah, I'd love to see it open up a bit more. And I worry that the slow return to kind of being in the office is not going to help things.
That's a really good point. It's like, we award difference in the work. Why don't we award difference in the people and the kind of departments that we're creating? And if anything, if you have a very diverse department, you're going to create very different work. I mean, COVID has shown that, like, being flexible and all that kind of thing, people can work from home, create amazing work. You know, even remote shoots, when you think about that was a thing, and it worked, right? It happened. People pitched everything. Some of it was better than other bits, but like, it was still, it's possible, right? So it's crazy to think, yeah, we're kind of going backwards a little bit. But hopefully, you know, there's some beacons, so we'll keep going forward. What would you say your superpower is, Fran, as a unicorn?
Oh my goodness. I think I'm quite good at simplifying things down and cracking problems. And then I think also there's an element where it's like not taking stuff too seriously, you know, having drive and ambition, but it not taking over your life and making you miserable. You know, I think it's really important.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks so much, Fran. It's been absolutely amazing. Lovely to hear all about your journey from account woman, I should say, into the creative department, to making absolutely amazing work. But thank you for giving me your time and telling us so much about your journey and your family. And listeners, thank you for listening, and tune in next time to hear from one of our other fabulous unicorns. Bye.
Mummy's a unicorn!
I hope you enjoyed listening to a conversation with a real-life unicorn. Please follow us to hear more, and any shares with creatives or mothers would be truly appreciated. Credit to Simone Hendrick for our logo design, and to my two sons for their wonderful voices. Produced and edited by myself.